Neighbor thinks she owns the whole building, then breaks into my house. I'm a 31-year-old woman living in a building with 6 apartments. About a month ago, the apartment above mine was sold, and the new owner moved in less than a week ago. This morning, I went to take the trash out and found a note stuck to my door. I assumed it was a friendly "Hi, I'm new to the building" note. Boy, was I wrong. The note read, "Dear tenant, I recently bought your building and wanted to introduce myself. My name is that, and I consider myself a fair landlord. However, I do have rules. Everyone must be in their units by 9 p.m. If you plan to be out later, find other accommodations. No pets are allowed. If you have any, they must be relocated before my inspection, or I will call animal control to remove them. This is your only warning. I will conduct a monthly inspection, and you must be present to answer any questions or face eviction. Failure to pay rent on time will result in eviction. If we all follow these rules, I'm sure we will get along. Sincerely, neighbor name." What the heck did I just read? Here's a fun fact. Each of us in the building owns our unit. No one person owns the entire building. When I got to rule number 2, I panicked because I have cats. Then I remembered that we bought our unit just before Christmas. We previously rented it from a friend who sold it to us. So, while it still feels like renting, we actually own our unit. I'm not great at confrontation. I tend to shake a lot, but I was angry, so I went upstairs and knocked on her door. My gut feeling was right. She opened the door, looking every bit the stereotype: blonde hair, long, brightly colored nails, and an annoyed expression. I introduced myself and mentioned her note. She interrupted, saying her rules were basic and even a child could understand them. If I didn't like them, I could submit a letter to vacate. Wow. I told her I owned my unit and that she hadn't bought the whole building, just her unit, and therefore couldn't enforce her rules. She didn't like that at all and started yelling, insisting she did own the whole building and that non-compliance would result in eviction. Just as I was beginning to doubt myself, another neighbor opened his door. He asked her to stop screaming as he worked nights and was trying to sleep. I explained the situation to him and she started yelling again. My neighbor told her to stop and then said the best thing I'd heard all day: "Are you stupid?" He explained she was wrong and mentioned he was part of the Strata Committee, similar to an HOA, and that she had no right to impose rules on everyone. She glared at us before slamming the door. I thanked him, and he said he had never seen someone so entitled in all his years living there. She has been quiet for the last few days, and I hoped that was the end of it. But I was wrong. Each unit in our building has one assigned parking space. I park in mine, and my so parks his car on the street on the other side of the building. There's one visitor space in our small parking lot, 6 resident spots and 1 visitor spot. The visitor spot is usually empty, and my neighbors have said my so could park there if needed, but he doesn't mind parking where he is. This morning my so woke up to yelling. Our kitchen window overlooks the parking lot, so he sneaked a peek outside and saw our entitled neighbor arguing loudly with our nice neighbor. She was insisting that she had a second car and needed to park in his spot, threatening to have his car towed if he didn't move it. He repeatedly told her that it was his parking spot and suggested she park in the visitor spot or on the street. He warned her that if she towed his car, he would report it as stolen. My so said she kept yelling that she could park wherever she wanted, and he needed to move his car, so he decided to park his car in my empty spot just in case she tried to park there while I was at work. The last message I received from him said she had stormed upstairs in a huff and slammed her door. When I got home from work, I saw she had parked her second car in the visitor spot, but she parked it so badly that it was blocking the driveway, forcing me to park on the street. The next morning it was still there, but when I came home later it was gone. I asked my so about it since he was home, and he told me a tow truck had come and taken it away. I'm not sure which neighbor called the tow truck, but I suspect it was the one she was arguing with. My so mentioned that she had been quiet all day with only the odd footsteps. It's been raining all week, and since I don't have a dryer, I hadn't been able to wash big items like sheets or towels, just clothes that I could hang up inside. On Saturday, it was finally sunny, so I raced home from work, dragged my so out of bed, and washed all the blankets to dry them before it rained again. I managed to get through 5 loads of sheets, blankets, and towels, hanging them all out on the shared line outside. We have 2 lines for everyone to use, and we've never had an issue before. I hung out my last load and went inside to relax. About an hour later, I went back out to get the first load off and found every single item I had hung out on the ground. Nothing had replaced it, all of it had been torn down, and my pegs and peg basket were gone. Most of what I'd hung out for was still wet and now covered in dirt. I got my so, and he helped me bring everything inside before I went upstairs and knocked on her door. When she answered, I asked if she had taken my laundry off the line. She smugly informed me that she hadn't given me permission to use her line and that next time I should ask politely and she might let me. I work in retail and deal with nightmare customers, so I know how to stay calm around these kinds of people. I tried to be polite about the whole situation with the letter and the car, but my bed is my safe space and I wanted it clean. She messed with that just to be petty. I calmly told her that everyone can use the line, it's part of the building and nobody has to ask her permission. She tried to talk over me, but I held up my hand and told her that I was part of the Strata committee, I knew all the rules, and she needed to stop her behavior because it wasn't doing her any favors. I wished her a nice day before she slammed her door. Our neighbor had been quiet for a while, and I thought maybe she had finally realized she couldn't control the whole building. One of her cars was parked in her spot, and the other was parked on the street behind my SO's car. Nobody's laundry had been ripped off the line, and no new notes were stuck to the doors. Until yesterday. Since we live in the bottom apartment, we have a side door that opens out onto the shared yard. We mostly use that door to air the place out or as a shortcut to hang laundry. Anyway, yesterday we were going about our day when we saw the entitled neighbor and a few other people setting up tables and chairs in the yard. No big deal, it's shared space. A few minutes later, there was a knock on the side door, and it was her. So opened the door, it's a glass sliding door, so she could see us. We couldn't pretend we weren't there, and after the usual greetings, she told us she was having a party and needed us to move our wooden planters off our patio because she needed the space for her barbecue. We told her no. Firstly, the patio is our space, not shared space, and secondly, they sit right next to the glass door, so I don't want some random looking into my living room all night to see why they are cooking. So reminded her she doesn't own the building and we wouldn't be moving shit when one of her friends asked what she was doing. They had already set up the barbecue in the yard. She huffed and walked off without saying anything to us, and we thought that was it. It was not. A few hours go by, and we end up closing the curtains for privacy. Whoever designed this building didn't really keep privacy in mind for a detail, but anyway, we can hear talking, laughing, and cooking, the usual sounds of a backyard party when there's another knock on the door. I was cooking dinner, so my so answered it again. This time it was one of her friends saying she had to use the bathroom, and her entitled neighbor told her to just knock on our door instead of walking upstairs. So politely told her sorry, but she couldn't use ours, and she apologized for knocking and intruding. Not even 2 minutes later, there's banging on the door, and by now my so is pissed. He opened the door, and the entitled neighbor started to lay into him about how dare he expect her guests to go all the way upstairs, and that he needed to apologize to her and keep the door open for her guests. Now, my so is usually a calm guy, very easy to talk to and rational, but in that moment, he lost his temper. He told her to F off and stop bothering us, to get her head out of her ass, and she can't lay claim to everything she sees. Our bathroom wasn't hers to use, her guests could use her bathroom, and if she knocked on our door again, he would call the police for harassment. At this point, one of her friends came over and told her entitled neighbor she needed to leave us alone and stop bugging us before apologizing and telling us to have a good night. We expected the party to be loud and go on all night, but it actually wrapped up pretty early, about 1 a.m., I think. This morning, when I got up, everything had been cleaned up in the yard, but our planters had been knocked over. Joke's on her because we hadn't planted anything in them yet and most of the soil in there was used for cat litter. I use potting mix as cat litter because it's cheaper, so now she can smell my cat's old turds. The next day it was a nice cool day. I had the door open, but the screen door shut and locked so I could air the house out after it had rained, and the house was smelling musty. Whenever that door is open, my cats will sit at it and watch all the birds outside. I was pretty tired, and my so suggested we both lay down and have a nap while I wait for the washing machine to finish. I thought, sure, why not? It was quiet today, so we went and laid down. We were woken up about an hour later to a rattling noise in the lounge room, and I thought maybe one of the cats had tried to climb the screen door again, so I got up to scold them and found my entitled neighbor trying to open my screen door. Like really pulling on it to the point where the whole door was shaking. I asked her what she was doing, and she told me she had seen my cats through the door while on her way to hang clothes out and wanted to pet them, but the door was stuck. I told her it wasn't stuck, it was locked because this is a private residence, and she can't just walk in here whenever she pleases. She kept trying to open the door while yelling that I can't keep my cats from people if they want to pet them and that it's her right to show them real love. I repeated that this was my home and she couldn't walk in whenever she wanted. This really seemed to piss her off, and she started to yell at me, saying that I was a little bitty and that I was abusing my animals, and how dare I speak to her like that. At this point, I was pretty sick of being yelled at in my own home, so I just mustered up the sweetest smile I could before politely telling her to F off. If looks could kill, my cats would be eating my body right now. She tried to open the door again when my so came out and said he would call the police if she didn't stop. She finally let go of the door, glared at us, and stormed off. Needless to say, we are ordering another camera for that door now, and yes, my cats are microchipped. Anyway, it's been quiet for a few weeks. I normally hear her arguing with another neighbor all the time, but lately nothing. Last week I bought a new car, and it's slightly bigger than my old car, so I'm not confident enough to park it in my spot, so I've been parking on the street. The other day, I got home from work and saw a young man standing on her balcony. He was quite friendly, called out hello to me, introduced himself as her nephew, and explained why he was there. She broke her foot. Apparently, at the last family dinner, she tripped over a dog and broke her foot, and she is now staying with family because she can't get up and down the stairs. He said he was house-sitting because she said she didn't trust her neighbors, but he admitted we are all really nice and quiet, and maybe she is just crazy. It took all my strength to not sing and dance right there. I was hoping she just wouldn't come back after she broke her foot, but last week we heard a door slam from upstairs. We looked outside and yes, her car was there. Anyway, a few days ago I tested positive for the much talked about pathogen and have been doing the right thing and staying inside and dying quietly. I'm fully vaccinated, so it's not that bad, though I could live without the headaches. My partner was away all day Saturday because he was picking up his new car, and he got home late Saturday afternoon, parking his new car on the back lawn so he could give it a quick hose down from the drive. I was inside watching through the sliding door when I heard her balcony door open, and she started yelling at him to get off her lawn. He told her to shove it, it's not her lawn, and he is done when he is done. Can she please stop yelling because I have COVID and it doesn't help the migraines? Well, that was a mistake. I heard her storming down the stairs, and she started banging on our door, screaming that I'm diseased and I need to isolate somewhere else before she gets sick, and if I didn't leave, she was going to call the police. I told her, through the main door, that she has been told repeatedly that she can't kick us out of our own place that we own. I am staying inside, and she could call the police if she wanted, but she would more than likely be fined herself for wasting their time. According to my so, who was coming in after moving his car, she looked downright murderous, but once she saw him, she took off up the stairs. We haven't heard anything from her since or anything from the police, so we think it was an empty threat. I was so tempted to open the door because, like they say, sharing is caring. So she was so quiet for so long and her car was barely there. I was starting to think maybe she had moved out, but I got a nice reminder last week that she is still around. To start this, I must give a brief background. There are 8 units total in this building. I am on the ground floor, and there is a nice old lady across the hallway. I have an unspoken rule that if one of us is home and the other isn't, we sign for and accept packages so they just aren't left in the hallway. I had been expecting a package, and I had a feeling it was going to show up while I was at work, but I wasn't worried because of my nice old neighbor. She would drop it off when I got home. No drama, right? Wrong. My nice old neighbor had actually gone away for a few days, so with nobody around, my package was left next to my front door. But it wasn't there when I got home. Oh yes. She had it. About 10 minutes after I got home, I heard the familiar stomping on the stairs and the banging on my door. Long story short, my package had been delivered, and she wanted to do the nice thing and hold on to it until I came home, but apparently it had accidentally ripped, and she saw what was inside. I won't lie, it was sex toys. I like to treat myself, sue me. The moment I opened the door, she threw my package at me, yelling that I was a disgusting pervert and I should move out before it spread. I told her that opening someone else's mail is a crime. It's not a crime to buy those kinds of things, but thanks for taking care of my package. And that was the last thing. OP have posted about her neighbor 2 years ago. Thanks for listening.